It's one of American literature's most revered and admired classics. Love, betrayal, and obsession are all at the forefront of this epic tale of heartbreak and redemption as visionary filmmaker Baz Luhrmann reunites with Leonardo DiCaprio to galvanize The Great Gatsby for a whole new generation.
I was on the Trans-Siberian Railway after Moulin Rouge. Took a couple of bottles of red wine with me, going to meet my wife in Paris. And I had 2 recorded books. One was The Gatsby, and I put it on and drank the wine and woke up 7 hours later and went, oh my God, I can't wait to finish that. And I realized there was a movie there that hadn't been made, and you had to crack the inner voice of Nick Carraway.
Action! Ultimately, he's more of a poetic soul, an introspective observer who's a writer, you know.
I mean, Fitzgerald was very obsessed with the movies, so it's a cinematic structure. You just had to work out the inner voice idea.
So he goes there and gets distracted immediately, starts living experiences that he had never had before, and gets inspired by this amazingly hopeful character in Gatsby.
I think that everyone has an attachment to Gatsby because he is this sort of iconic dreamer.
I've gotten all these things for her. I've gotten all these things for her. Now she just wants to run away.
She even wants to leave that.
Jay, you can't repeat the past.
One of the things most touching for me was the relationship between Nick and Gatsby and their sort of brotherhood and how much Nick believes in him. And Leo brings this sort of childlike quality to Gatsby at the same time as being the most dominating man in the room. And that's pretty amazing.
I thought I might see you here.
Hello.
I remembered you live next door.
It's like an amusement park.
Shall we?
Did you get an invitation?
People aren't invited to Gatsby's.
Well, I was. Seems I'm the only one. Who is this Gatsby?
He was a German spy during the war.
Teddy Barton, Nick Carraway.
A German spy?
No. He's the Kaiser's assassin.
I heard he killed a man once.
It's true. Killed for fun, free of charge. He's certainly richer than God.
You don't really believe he killed a man, do you?
Well, let's go find him and you can ask him yourself.
I remember reading the novel in junior high school and having a completely different interpretation of who he was. I thought it was sort of a standard love story in a lot of ways. Rereading it as an adult, for the first time, grasped the great tragedy that Gatsby is. He is this sort of hollow shell of a man that's creating his own destiny according to his own imagination.
I couldn't think of anyone else to play it. It is the American Hamlet. He is at the height of his powers.
It's like the perfect time to make this movie with Leo. You know, I think even if you look at him and his career and his age and all of that.
He avoids making it a cliche romantic lead in the simmering emotions beneath the surface.
It was hard for Leonardo because he runs away from films where he has to put on a suit and use that considerable cinematic charm of his. He runs away from that because he's much more interested in the complicated, the challenging, the dark. The great thing about Gatsby is it has both things. Starts out as the most glamorous, cool man in the world, ends up, you realize he's Hamlet, he's going crazy.
It's a strange coincidence.
What is?
The fact that Gatsby's house is just across the bay.
It's no coincidence. He bought that house to be near her. He threw all those parties hoping she'd wander in one night. He constantly asked about Daisy. I was just the first person that knew her.
All that for a girl he hasn't seen in 5 years. And now he just wants me to invite her over to tea. The modesty of it.
He's incredibly, actually quite vulnerable in a way that, you know, I didn't initially read when I read it. And he brings this sort of, almost sort of, you know, desperation to it. But at the same time, he's so strong and he's so committed to this idea and he's so hopeful.
He really puts his guard down and lets Gatsby be a number of qualities. He's actually the romantic lead while being a great romantic lead.
I don't like to talk about my own films and say, oh, this bit's good and that bit's not, but I have not a modicum of doubt about the caliber of that actor's performance. I mean, that is I think he knocks it out of the ballpark.
I think when he turns round and you see him for the first time in the movie, it's one of the best entrances into a film I've ever seen. It just has such an impact. It's so huge.
I'm certainly glad to see you again.
I'm certainly glad
glad to see you as well.
Everyone is a dreamer, and everyone wants to sort of fulfill their life according to their own dreams, and here's this one guy that does it all for the love of one woman. But, you know, as you read as an adult, you really start to question who this woman is and his motives for doing it and what Daisy really represents in his life.
Is all this made entirely from your own imagination?
No. See, you were there all along. And every idea, every decision. Of course, if anything is not to your liking, I'll change it.
It's perfect. From your perfect, irresistible imagination.
Daisy's a tricky character. Daisy took a lot of figuring out. She's easily villainized, actually, because she seems to make such sort of shallow choices. I think for a woman of her time, she kind of makes a logical choice to marry into money, and one that people would encourage. So she's married to a very, very wealthy man, and they're practically royalty. And in her youth, she has a relationship with Gatsby, which is sort of a whirlwind month that they spend together. They fall madly in love, and then he disappears. And then when he re-enters her life, she's gotten to the point in her marriage where she's pretty downtrodden and pretty betrayed by her husband.
Oh, I suppose the latest thing is to sit back and let Mr. Nobody from nowhere make love to your wife.
Your wife doesn't love you.
She never loved you. You see, she loves me.
And she gets whipped up back into this sort of magical world with Gatsby. So it's part love, part infatuation.
What kind of a row are you trying to cause in my house, anyhow?
He isn't causing a row. You're causing a row. Please have a little self-control.
Self-control? You must be crazy.
No, old sport. No, you see, she never loved you.
You could easily just read the book and go, that girl is a gold digger. Now,
Really? I do not see that at all.
when I first read the book, I was like, Daisy's a gold
What do
digger.
you mean? She's the one with the money. She doesn't need Gatsby.
No, but she met Gatsby and they
But her
didn't marry
mother-
each other,
her
and then
mother
she
made-
married Tom.
Because he said he left her and then...
Do you mind if we argue about this? We are a married
We
couple.
really have to argue about this.
We have to talk about this later, honey. Do you mind?
Buchanan, candy?
No, thank you.
No?
Mrs. Wilson?
Okay.
Nick Carraway.
A pleasure.
Nick's the writer.
Oh,
I'm in Bonds, actually.
I want you to get on the next train.
now?
Yes.
Can we get the dog for the apartment?
Whatever you want.
Hey, Mr. Buchanan, you want a soda?
I'm fine.
No?
Call your sister if you like him.
No. That's all right, thank you.
Catherine's said to be very good looking, by people who ought to know.
Really, I can't.
Hey, you want to embarrass Myrtle?
We read a lot of different actresses for the role because it's one of those characters that is incredibly complex. You have to have this sort of, you know, this sort of iconic beauty and flippancy flippant attitude that Daisy has, but also be this sort of wretched, money-grubbing, social, you know, butterfly at the same time.
Well, I actually found out about 3 days beforehand that I even had an audition. I didn't think I was going to get into the room. So I flew to New York and I auditioned with Leo twice over 2 days. And then it went silent for about 3 weeks. And I spent 3 weeks just panicking. I finally found out that I got the job when I was at an event in New York, and Baz called and he told me.
Carrie was able to capture that innocence and that complexity and that shallowness simultaneously. And it was a hard thing to really pull off, and not many actresses were able to really grasp her. And as soon as we read Carrie, she just blew our socks off. She was just incredible. And Baz and I looked at each other and said, this is the person for the job.
Daisy tells me that you're over in West Ag, throwing your lot in with those social climbing, primitive new money types.
My little shack's just a cardboard box at $80 a month.
Your life is adorable. I know somebody in West Egg.
I don't know a single person that side of the bay.
Oh, you must know Gatsby.
Baz is an incredibly ambitious director, and you know when you see a Baz Luhrmann film, he's gonna have his own take on whatever subject matter he picks.
Gatsby. He had a grand vision for his life since he was a boy. I'm gonna fix things just the way they were before.
Just you and me.
No amount of fire could challenge the fairy tale he had stored up in his heart.
People must think, oh, he just, you can't have a Baz Luhrmann film unless he has a soundtrack where he's selling lots of records.
I think the music works amazingly well.
I did it because Fitzgerald took an African-American street music, jazz, put it in the actual text. And everyone was like, why are you doing that? And he said, because it defines our time, it's who we are. He coined the phrase, the jazz age. Well, we live in the hip hop age.
Baz describes hip hop as the jazz of our era, and it makes you grin.
So like Fitzgerald, dealing with hip hop, I was lucky enough to be working with the chairman of the board, that would be Mr. Jay-Z. He's a serial collaborator.
Every time I heard a music cue kick in, I heard like Jay-Z or Florence or Fergie or whatever. I fell further into the film. I just loved it.
So the music is about making you feel like what it would have been to read that novel in 1925.
I think Baz, like F. Scott Fitzgerald, was looking to make something new and beautiful and intricately patterned.
Baz really dreams extravagantly big. I describe him as a guy that's on the train, kind of like sticking his head out the window and feeling the breeze. Like he's really willing to put himself out there and go big and tell big stories with big themes.
When he takes on a subject matter, he goes full force, and he works tirelessly to really, even though he's recreating these worlds, capture the essence of what was great about the tragedy of these stories, and Gatsby is another one of them.
He's completely dedicated and completely fearless and completely impossible to tire out, and so in love with the book. And hearing him talk about the book for the first time is one of my favorite memories from the whole experience.
And he has not been shy about, taking on some incredible classics that are iconic, doing Romeo and Juliet and then doing Great Gatsby, which is almost like American Shakespeare in a lot of ways.
He wants to be progressive and innovative and is a real master in terms of understanding how to collaborate and use the tools that a director has.
I wish I'd done everything on Earth with you.
He is a real Gatsby-type figure. He's a dreamer. It's an honor to work with somebody who's that ambitious.
It's actually about something. And what it is about is something that's on everyone's mind. So I think you get two things. I think you have a whole lot of fun. It's really entertaining, but it's also, and it's very emotional, I think. But I think ultimately it's about something.
I don't want to go home.
And don't.
It had gone beyond her. It had gone beyond everything.
Something ought to be done about a fella like that. My life has got to be like this. It's got to keep going on.